Thank you for joining me, Mr. Kang. It's actually quite an honor.
Hello, Casey.
Making your own podcasts and doing the same thing I'm kind of doing.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it better. So.
Okay.
So who are you, Mr. Kang?
I'm Mr. Kung from Delview Secondary.
So you're from Delview Secondary. Did you teach anywhere before?
I did. I guess it was in 2003 I started here. So before that, I taught for a year at Delta Secondary School in Ladner. And before that, I TOC'd for a couple of years. And before that, I was in education at UBC.
What did you want to teach, and what do you teach now?
I was actually, that's a good question, because when I came out of education, the education program at UBC, I really wanted to teach science because that was my background. But of course, as a new teacher, as new teachers would experience when they're trying to find a job, it's probably a good idea not to be too picky. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to be really picky. I was like, no, I'm not gonna take that math job. What is that? PE? I'm not taking that. So this is why I TOC'd for 2 years, like looking for the job, like
your niche, like doing a bunch of different subjects for TOCing.
Yeah, but actually that was a good experience TOCing because I got to see 2 different districts because I TOC'd for Vancouver and Delta and got to see what that was about and different schools with different cultures and different demographics of students. And then I kind of settled on Delta. And at that time, like I said, I was being picky. And I eventually realized in order to get my foot in the door, I had to just take whatever. Mm-hmm. So I eventually made it into Delta Secondary. Actually, at that time, having TOC'd for a couple of years, I was like, maybe I'll try something else instead of teaching. And I went to a program for programming. It was like a business programming course downtown. That's where I met my wife. Mm-hmm. But in that program, I thought it was lots of fun. And then kind of thought of that as a possible career path. But then when you went to a few job interviews and information interviews, didn't go well because September 11th happened and the market crashed and things were bad. It was my wife, or soon-to-be wife at that time, who said, you should really consider going back to teaching because you're really, that's kind of your thing. And I never had a class before. And then one day when I was TOCing at Delta Secondary, a teacher came in the door while I was TOCing, and she said, there's a job opening here for next year. You should try that. And I was like, no, I'm thinking of other things. And she was like, you've never had your own class before because, it's different when you can build your own program instead of just dropping in for a day, right?
Right.
Which is what TOCing is. You never bring anything home. You're kind of distanced from the students because you're basically just babysitting them for a day.
So what class was that opening? Was it a specific thing, or was it just a general, you can have a classroom?
It was for PE and math. So it was definitely not science. But at that point, I was kind of like, well, okay, I need a job. And I can't be too picky because I'm not getting anything that way. Mm-hmm. So I did that for a year. I taught I think it was 3 grade 8 PE classes, boys PE, which was very different from what I'm used to. Half the sports that I had to teach them, I didn't even know. I never watched rugby before. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about football. The only sports I knew about was hockey.
Yeah. So what did you take away from learning all those sports? Do you think that impacted you positively, learning all those?
Well, what I learned was that it's not just about reading a rule book, which is, one thing, but if you don't play the sport or at least watch the sport, there's only so many things you can get out of, reading the rules. Mm-hmm. I ended up actually getting some of the kids who were more experienced to kind of help me run it because I had no clue what I was doing, right? Yeah. So I would take out the equipment and then I would be like, okay, so the rule book says And they'd be like, what are you talking about? That's not how it works. Because there's so many different situations that you don't know about, right?
So out of curiosity, like, is this normal for first-time gym teachers, or have you related this to like Mr. Lamin, Mr. Pocock,
I've actually,
Schulk?
yeah, I've actually never talked to them about like what it's like to be a beginning gym teacher. I'm sure a lot of PE teachers, they already have lots of experience with sports,
Right.
like the two you mentioned do. Whereas I was coming from, faculty of science, and I was never super into sports. I played volleyball, hockey, and badminton, and that was it. Like the sports that I had to teach were rugby, football, like I had soccer. I had no experience with any of those, so it was kind of tough. And the other three courses that I had to teach were all sorts of different math courses. So at that time, they called it math essentials, basically kind of lower level math just to get students understanding basic math concepts. Um, so that was a really interesting experience as well because I'd never taught math before. Coming from sciences, though, I was like good at math, because you have to be to do physics and biology and stuff, doing calculations. But
So wait, what exactly brought you to what you teach now? Which, don't help me out here. You got engineering 11 and 12,
yeah,
right? You got infotech 11 and 12.
yeah,
And then you have one other, you have innovation, of course, that you and Mr. Turpin created.
yes,
And then you have another class that I don't remember. I think it's some kind of design class, but I'm not sure. So
ADST. That's just the grade 8 rotation. Yeah. So what brought me to that? Well, when I first started at Delview back in 2003, again, this was only my second year of teaching. A job opportunity came up here, and somebody said there's a job here, and I was like, I'm in, whatever it is. And it happened to be, this was linear here before semestered.
that's like 8 classes, right?
That's correct. Yeah, throughout the whole year. So I was literally teaching 7. I had one prep, so one block where I could get ready for stuff,
Yeah.
and then 7 completely different courses.
Wow.
I was teaching drama and careers and keyboarding, computer science, and what else was I teaching? I think I had I had math and no science yet. So anyways, it was
That
it was
sounds
kind
wild.
of that whole year I was a mess because can you imagine like trying to prepare 7 different
Yeah,
courses?
I got to do 4 and I'm struggling.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it was very much borrowing stuff from other teachers and just handing it out without even looking at it much
Oh,
of
yeah.
the time and collecting it and not knowing what to do or mark. It was a struggle because when you just throw that kind of thing, especially at a new teacher who has less experience, and new teachers need to work on their classroom management, right? Their how they manage the class, and especially if they're new, students know that, and they're like, well, let's test this guy out, and what are his boundaries and stuff like that. Dealing with that and trying to prepare for 7 completely different things. That was a very, very difficult.
How
year.
long was one class back then? For 8 classes, you had one prep. So how long did you have the prep?
Yeah, I think back then we had like 5 blocks in a day.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
We had 5 blocks in the day, and I can't remember how long classes were. I think they were like, I'm going to say like 60 minutes or something like that. It was shorter. But yeah, I don't remember exactly how many. Our
So-
schedules changed a few times.
Were you one of the only teachers with like separate blocks every block? Because that sounds like hell. Like no other teacher should even handle that.
I think that year probably, yeah. It's what in the business they call the dog's breakfast, where all of the teachers who have seniority, they've taken all of their loads, and then whatever's left, they have to create for somebody who comes in to take the rest of the blocks, right? Because
Right.
somebody's got to teach them. So it's kind of leftovers from all these other areas where they have like one block of this course, one block of this course. Let's bunch them all together and see if we can hire somebody to teach those.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. You have to grade so many people's assignments.
Yeah.
So it's just like, how did you motivate yourself to go through that?
At that point, it was just a job because I could do no more, right? I had no time to think or really consider what I was doing. So, that was an awful year of teaching. Like looking back, I did not teach well. Like if you were in my class in that first year, I'm sorry, because, I was just trying to survive. I was trying to make ends meet in terms of money, but also trying to establish myself in the school culture, and at the same time trying to get a job done that I was happy with, but not really happy with, because I just had no time to be happy with it. I just had to keep moving on.
You're happy now, right? This is
absolutely
good. So where was that transformation from being unhappy and happy in Delview?
I think over time, once you start having courses, like multiple of the same course, then you start really learning from it. Because if you teach that one science grade 8 block and there's no other science grade 8 blocks, and then you just go on teaching something else, it's hard to get better at it. So once I started having courses where, there were 3 blocks of this course or 2 blocks of this course, at least I got the chance to repeat certain things and then see how it went and then improve it. Even through the course of the day, I would improve things, right? And once you are able to improve things, you start feeling better about what you're doing because you're actually making some progress, not just throwing stuff out there as a one-off and who knows how it would work next year, right?
What would you tell people that were in your case of like 8 classes that they didn't know? What would you tell them to get through that? Strategies, tips?
I think all you can do is what I did, which is just borrow, beg, steal from other people and try to get through the day like that. And hopefully it doesn't last. And it usually doesn't. Like once you gain some seniority, then you can start picking and choosing, hopefully. I don't think anybody stays like that because it doesn't work that way. Like usually those kinds of loads unfortunately get left with people who are less experienced, which is not right either, because I think we lose a lot of teachers that way who just get started and they have a terrible negative experience and they're like, well, I guess it's not for me. But the ones that stick around, who understand that, this is only temporary, I think they have the chance to become really good later on.
Interviewing Mr. Solly forever ago, which inspired this whole podcast, he was talking about that exact same thing where you just got to get through the first year or two, and that's where you really get your feet on the ground and you start enjoying teaching.
Yeah, and I think that's the same with any vocation. Yeah, I think at the beginning it's tough until you learn the ropes. It's not just learning the ropes of what you're doing, the actions that you're performing, but also becoming part of the culture of the school or the workplace. And you find your identity, because everybody, when you're in a new situation, you feel like you're lost and you don't belong. And then eventually you find a network of people that you can relate to, and then it starts building up. Everything starts building up.
So you didn't really make much of your assignments back then, but now I'm guessing you do make a lot of your assignments. So an assignment I really loved is the tic-tac-toe. That was a beautiful way of getting people to do objects and such, right?
Yeah.
So what's your creative process to making your assignments?
Well, that's a good example because that was not my idea. We, as a staff, we often share with each other in collaboration. But I think that idea maybe came from Mr. Kim. I think he did something similar with a completely different subject area, or it could have been Mr. Turpin. I think it was Mr. Turpin, actually. And it might have been born out of what we were doing during COVID, where we were asked to try to reduce the workload because a lot of kids weren't doing well and the attendance wasn't there and we were quarantined. And so born out of that, the tic-tac-toe was, okay, just choose 3 of these different options, right? And I think Turpin used it as a drama activity where you chose 3 in a line. I was like, oh, that could work for infotech as well. Provide some choice, which I think is important for projects and for people to take ownership. They get to choose and work on these things. So my creative process is I do listen to a lot of podcasts. Sometimes my ideas come from that. Some of them are education podcasts, but not all of them.
What are podcasts, Mr. Kung?
I don't. It's like when you record something with a microphone onto an SD card. Oh, what's this? Oh, you do have an SD card in this, and we have microphones in front of us. I guess this is a podcast.
Oh, I thought this was magic.
Magic, yeah. Podcasts are magical, though.
Yeah, and you have your podcast, Raideo.
The Raideo podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Right. And this podcast, CaseLowski, keep it lowski.
Is that what you're calling it?
Yeah, cool. I hope to call it that.
I like
CaseLowski. It's because it's Casey Pulowski.
Yes.
Combined, CaseLowski.
Yes, excellent.
What inspired you to create your podcast? When did that begin?
Well, I had been working here for a while. I think I probably started this around 2015. I started thinking about it because I was a huge podcast fan. I'd been listening to podcasts ever since the beginning of podcasts, right? So I was kind of an early listener because I love the idea of anybody being able to just stick a microphone at their mouth and recording something and just saying what they want. And the variety of niche topics that are out there is super cool. And you know me, I'm a nerd, right?
Totally.
Or a geek, I guess is the appropriate
Both
word.
apply. Yes.
Yeah. So, and I attract a lot of geeks in my classroom because I teach infotech. And I love the fact that we have these little pockets of people who are kind of experts at their thing. So like we have the anime geeks at our school who are really know everything about anime. We have the programmers in our school who know everything about programming. And podcasts are like that. You can go and find a podcast about knitting or crocheting or programming or about movies, anything, right? Which you can't find on the radio because on the radio, they need to sell to a broad audience in order to stay alive. Whereas podcasts are just kind of
people
things
come
that
to you
people
for
come
that
to
specific thing.
Yeah. So I found that really cool. And the reason why I got started was I'd been working here for a while, and I was finding that outside of class, unless I attended like drama productions or go to sports matches that kids were involved in, I rarely got to really know students and staff. Like the conversations sometimes in the staff room were okay, but those are definitely not conversations where you can really get to know somebody.
Yeah, because
right?
It's just like your job, right?
Yeah,
you don't want to sit down and talk about.
And there's always small talk, like in the morning. You're like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
How was last night? Oh, good. Okay, gotta go now. Right, that's about it. Whereas sitting people down and having a conversation like this, you can kind of dig deeper and learn something from them. So that's kind of where it started. I want to get to know people in my school. And I also wanted to have other people know these people that are in the school. So the listeners could find out about what's going on, right? And so that's how it started. And I told somebody at the district, Neil Stevenson, who's very supportive. He's I can't remember his title, but he works at the district. And I told him about it, and the next day he sent me one of those blue snowball mics.
Oh yeah,
and he was like, "Here, get started with this." I'm like, "That's awesome," because I didn't have a mic at that time.
Yeah.
And so I plugged that into my computer. And one day I was sitting in the staff room playing with GarageBand. Cecilio walked in
Mm-hmm.
and I told him to sit down. And that's like I call it episode 0 because
Right.
it wasn't a planned episode. I was just testing out the mic and stuff like that.
It's like the pilot.
Yeah, exactly. So that's when I got started. I was like, this is actually possible. And
Yeah.
then just like with your projects, I always like to think ahead to, okay, but what do we do with this? Like, does it live and die here on my computer? Or can I put it somewhere where other people can access it? Right. And that's actually, I take that to everything that I planned for things like infotech and engineering and even innovation is how can we make this something that's real? And by making it real, you learn the process, say publishing a book or making a video game or making some sort of design that you can share later on with the world, right? And that's what podcasts are all about. You want to share it.
Right.
So that's the next thing I looked into. Like, how do I actually make this a real podcast, not just one that I just record for myself, right?
Yeah, and that kind of was somewhat the same story for me. I had a project to do a podcast, and I'm like, why don't I do the podcast on someone who assigned me the assignment? And I realized, wow, this is really great. I wish it was more than 10 minutes. And it already goes with my personality where I talk to teachers and I find that I learn a lot of interesting stuff. And a lot of students disrespect teachers sometimes or have robotic scenarios where it's like, here's assignment. Okay, I did assignment here. Take assignment. I want it to be more of a conversation. Hey, how are you? Here's my assignment. Blah, blah, blah. So I thought this would be a really great way of doing that to create more, I guess, closeness between teachers and students. That's super important for education and personal growth.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I think anytime you can give something to somebody to not just to like there's some finality to it. That's it. I'm done with it. But to get it back with some feedback and then you can improve it. I think that's a better way to learn because in real life, it doesn't work that way that you just hand it to somebody and you're finished, right? It's often you are asked to improve on something and get better at something until it gets better. And then you can put it out there to the world. Yeah.
So going back in time a bit, what was your childhood like, Mr. Kung?
My childhood, I was born in Vancouver and my family lived in Vancouver for a short time. In an apartment. And then my parents got their first house in Richmond. So really most of my childhood was in Richmond. So even now, when I talk to people from Richmond who are around the same age, we kind of know the same people. It's kind of funny that way because it was a small community back then. And so, so-and-so went to high school. Oh, I know that person, blah, blah, blah. This is what they did. All the secrets come out, that kind of thing. So my childhood was, it was fun. It was, I have a big family on both sides, both my mom and dad's sides. Unfortunately, I don't get to see them as much anymore because, families, big extended families, they have kids and those kids have kids and it's harder to get together. But it was really cool for a long time because there were lots of get-togethers, lots of food, lots of, playing with cousins and stuff like that and going out on trips, camping, fishing, that kind of stuff. That was my upbringing. And growing up in Richmond, lots of opportunities to do sports like soccer. Right. So I did do soccer until I was like 10 years old, but I was terrible at soccer. Or community events and things like that. So Richmond was a cool place to grow up in. I still go back there for all sorts of things. Like anytime they have community events there, I like to go back.
So you grew up with a lot of extracurriculars like sports and such. Did you ever get a job, first job? What is...
My first jobs... My very first job was probably with my cousins because they started off in the tech sector, like with kind of lower end jobs. Eventually, one of my cousins became like the vice president of PMC Sierra, which is a huge company, chip making company. But I remember when he was just kind of a programmer, and I went to help him test his code. So that was a cool job. I got to show up every day and test out the new software that nobody else had seen before. I think it was like some sort of real estate software. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I got paid for that. My first job without family intervention was at Panaboat International, which was a prefab housing. I can't remember where I found this job. I think I found it I went to an employment center or something like that. And it was as a receptionist. And it was an okay job, answering phones and photocopying. And the jobs that I really treasure are the ones where I got to work with kids, because I did a lot of summer camps.
Like kids, like high school kids, or elementary?
Little kids, elementary age kids. I worked at a lot of summer camps. I was a camp leader. I first volunteered and then got a paying job doing that. Took kids on trips around Richmond. Worked for West Richmond Community Center, so we did after school care as well. So that was a ton of fun. And when I first thought about going into teaching, actually at UBC after my science degree was over, I looked back at those moments, working with kids in summer camps and things like that, and how much I enjoyed doing that, and also tutoring and those kinds of things where I got to teach people. I thought, well, this is kind of what I do. That's what I'm good at and what I enjoy.
Yeah. So besides teaching and your actual job, do you do anything outside of school, like hobbies?
Yeah, I most recently I joined my sister's ringette team. So I joined last year. Last year was like a practice year.
Wait, what is that?
Ringette. It's like kind of like hockey. You're on the ice. It's different rules, and instead of a puck, there's a ring. So the stick is different as well. There's no blade on the stick. So you're kind of passing the ring around. It's a lot harder than it looks, because you have to, when you get a pass, you have to stab it.
Exactly what I'm imaging.
Yeah. So the hand-eye coordination involved in doing that was a little different from hockey. I did play hockey in probably the late 90s. My first, in high school, but also the first few years of university, I played some hockey, roller hockey and ice hockey.
So you're a hockey fan?
Love hockey.
Totally. What's your favorite team?
Canucks.
Canucks?
Sometimes they disappoint, but what team doesn't disappoint once in a while? But yeah, I've followed them for a while. I can't say I'm like a super fan, because there are moments, a few years there where I didn't bother watching them. Right? But I enjoy watching hockey. I enjoy playing hockey. I enjoy playing ringette. Just for the same thing, the speed. I love skating around fast, and just the competitiveness of both sports.
Yeah, I like sports that are super fast, and like, for example, volleyball. I love volleyball because it's just so like the adrenaline high. A ball is shooting over here, and then you're like, oh, okay, you're my friend's. You're always looking around really quick, and you're always moving, and you're always paying attention, and you always got to move fast. And that's why I just love volleyball, and I see how that's kind of like hockey for you, right?
And volleyball I played as well in university. And that's like the ultimate team sport, because you have to
Like,
get the ball to your teammate. You can't just do it alone.
yeah, so like for a lot of sports, you could probably do it alone or with another person. Like if there's three people or two people that only know how to play really well, you could just give it to them and they'll like carry. But for volleyball, you always have to work as a team and you're always communicating with your team while you're playing. And I absolutely love it.
Yeah, so volleyball, I actually played in university. We were called the Flying Squirrels. Some of my friends created this team. So we were actually pretty serious for a while. And there was what do they call it? Intramural team. So we had a co-ed team, entered a tournament, and we actually were first place in that tournament in our tier.
Wow.
So that was lots of fun.
Moving back to jobs and such, if you were to have, what's your dream job? Would you say that's still what you're doing right now, teaching?
I feel that way because I don't feel, I mean, it can be stressful sometimes, but overall, I don't feel negative when I go home. I have to say though, like at the beginning, maybe because I was struggling, like the years that I was talking about, it was very difficult. But right now, I feel really good about it. I come in the morning, I feel good. I feel good just chatting it up with students as I walk to my room. And people saying hi. It's like a really, especially at the school, like really welcoming and friendly, it seems, for the most part anyway.
I'd say this job probably like ups a battery more than any other job because it's quite social.
Yeah. And that's what I wanted when I was looking for, you know, you kind of have a moment my moments were in university when I was just about to finish sciences. And I was like, what the heck am I going to do with this? Right? So I kind of pictured us being a scientist, but I was like, no, that's not for me. Like other people, I mean, it's a really valuable job to be a scientist, and I understand it. But for me, I could not imagine myself being at a lab bench conducting experiments all day. That was none of my interest. I wanted to be around people, and not that they aren't around people, but like the way we do things here, you're like moving around, you're interacting with students, you're trying to help them get better, that kind of stuff. That's kind of what I enjoy doing. And I, you know, looking back, I would have to say the first moment that I thought, teaching, was probably back in high school, in junior high, because we had junior, senior high back then. And I think probably in grade 9 or 10, I remember a moment when I was in a French class and there was another student who was really struggling, like really not doing well and feeling really poorly about himself. He might have been an ELL student, but I took the time to sit down and help him out because I saw that he was not feeling good about being there. And that was a defining moment for me because at the end of that year, he actually took the time to write a letter to me in a card. And I don't know where this thing is, but I definitely remember it. But he wrote how much that meant to him, that I would sit down with him and help him out with what he was doing, like changed everything for him.
Yeah.
And so that I will always remember because I think at that moment I was like, you know, I feel good about doing that. And maybe I want to feel good about doing this more times. You know what I mean? And, you know, when I was kind of lost in university thinking, what do I do with this? That moment did come to mind. Yeah.
If you weren't a teacher, what would you be?
That's hard to say. I mean, I had a lot of interests. Like at one point, I really was into making movies.
Like directing or screen?
Or just
writing.
Whatever. I was, you know, if you're starting out, you're just doing everything, right? I really enjoyed editing. I really enjoyed the process of making stupid videos, right? I mean, if you look at, childhood videos of all these famous directors. They all started somewhere. So that could have been interesting for me. I've thought about that for a while. I did think about architecture for a while because I was into buildings at some point. Yeah, there were a lot of things that I think I could have done besides teaching, but this is where I landed, and this is what I love right now.
Cool. Now, I wanted to move into a little bit of a subject of morals and philosophies.
Sure.
So, starting, the trolley problem, I'm
Yes.
sure. So, the one person will be a student that you know, and then there's
Is
five.
it you?
And then there's 5 students that you don't know.
Yeah.
What would you do with that trolley problem?
It depends. Is it you?
Okay, let me rephrase. Okay, so the one student is going to be a favorite student. Okay, if you had a favorite, it would be that favorite student. And then the 5 students are 5 random students.
So you have to be more specific with the trolley problem, because you have to say, well, the trolley is headed towards the one student, and should you pull the the lever and switch the track to the track with the bunch of students, or just leave it alone and let it run over Casey?
Oh, okay. So what would you do? Would you let it run over me, or would you let it run over 5 random students?
See, with these ethical dilemmas, there's no answer, obviously, so it doesn't matter what I say.
But it's what you would do.
What would I do?
It doesn't have to be me, just your favorite student.
Okay, so you're just trying to get an answer.
100%.
So I would just let it run over Casey.
Okay, noted. I'll stay away from the trolleys.
Yes, please do not, as a public service announcement, please don't lie down on train tracks. It's generally not a good idea, and you don't want anybody to have to make that decision. So take away that decision for people, because it's a tough decision.
So right next to this trolley, you get off the trolley, just a random trolley, and you find $200 on the ground.
Okay,
but it's just $200 and in a wallet with no ID. What do you do with that $200?
And a wallet with no ID. And it's near the train tracks.
Wow, that doesn't really... Yeah, because you were just at the trolley, right, for the trolley problem. Now you kind of just moved on.
Oh, we're not at the trolley anymore.
Yeah, I'm crushed.
Oh, I see. I just find a wallet.
Yeah.
I would... Well, if you ask around, then somebody might just say, it's mine, and then just take it, right?
Right. And it's, of course, theirs, right?
Yeah. Yeah, right. I don't know if there's a place around there where I think I could leave it, like an official place. Like if it was sitting outside of a bank, I'd probably take it into the bank just in hopes that somebody might come back and claim it. I don't think I would take it. I don't think I would take it.
You just leave the 200 on the floor and let God do its part?
I wouldn't leave it on the floor. No, I would pick it up and I would take it to the nearest store or something. Because if you leave it on the floor, then somebody who is not the owner might take it, right? So that would be my worry. Because I always think about, like, what if I had dropped the $200?
Right, but this $200 could have traveled really far, right? Like, I
could have, yeah.
The owner could just not be around anymore for it.
In fact, I've done that before. Like, I don't know the situation, so I would just bring it to the nearest store or whatever, and hopefully they pop into that store and look. If not, then I guess it's that person's decision, not mine.
Right. My thought process is, like, if there was the $200 can't be returned to its owner, because, like, it's just, like, yeah, they'll come looking around, but I doubt they'll find that 200 because everyone's going to take that 200. If you bring it to the store, we'll return it to the right person. That's... The likelihood is none, and even if they do, they got to go into that store and ask for $200, right?
Yeah.
And think that they're not trying to rob them or anything. So I would say, if you were in a situation where you needed it you can give it to yourself, or you donate. If you don't need it, you donate it to charity, to a bigger cause.
Yeah.
Because it's more about self-interest, whether you want the 200 or whether you think charity could do better with this 200 that just came up about. Because you didn't work for this 200.
Yeah. Now, what if the person comes back and you've already donated the 200 to charity, and the person's like, but this is my life savings and my daughter who has cancer at home and needs treatment, and that's what the $200 was for, and I just dropped it, and within a few minutes you just donated to charity?
Well,
what kind of monster are you?
Of course, you gotta wait like at least a few days with the 200. Look around. I'll probably stay around that area for like a good few days to see if anyone's just looking under a bench for some reason.
I see.
And then I'll be like, okay, this is a lost cause. Charity could probably do better.
I see. Okay.
200. That's my thinking for it.
I see. Then we need to write this down then, just to make sure everybody knows those are the rules.
So another little philosophy question that I came up with, I don't know if it comes from somewhere else, is if you were to have anything from someone else and you could take it without them knowing, but you have to take something. So like, for example, this could be someone's title, right? So you could be president, prime minister. You can take that title.
No, thanks.
Not that you would. Or maybe it's a special iPhone, or maybe it's a McDonald's free card where you get free McDonald's anytime. It's like a golden...
If I take it away from them, they no longer have it, right?
Yeah, and they won't... Everyone's happy in that situation. You'll just have it. What would you take? What's that special item?
But why would somebody be... Like, if I took somebody's health, why would that person be happy?
Think about it like God is like, hey, I'm God and I'm asking you that question.
Okay.
So God intervention will make everyone happy, or just like...
Oh, everybody turns out okay?
Yeah.
Oh,
so you took someone's car, right? So for example, like...
and they get another car?
One of Ronaldo's car.
Yeah.
Then he's fine with it. He'll figure it out. But in the end, he'll be happy with that decision. But he won't know that it was a decision in the first place.
Okay.
He won't know that he lost that car, but he'll know that...
But is he getting a new car?
Everything's fine. Well, probably anytime. So, for example, you could be like, I'll take a car.
So the question is what I would take? So that's the essential question, like, what do I want?
Yeah, what do you want in
trying
life,
to figure
I guess, is what I'm asking, but with this question.
What do I want?
It has to be what someone else has. Maybe you're jealous of someone's computer, right? Maybe, like, what I would probably do is take someone else's computer that's like supercomputer, like the new 50 series and biggest CPU and that such.
I'm trying to think of what I want. I think I just want the people that I love to be happy and healthy, and that's what I would want. So if somebody is in trouble and I can take something from somebody else and they won't be affected and give it to that person in need, then that's what I would do. I think in terms of like cars or computers or whatever, I don't really have a need for that per se, that I can't do myself. Like I can't, have the money to buy because I work. I mean, I think I'm not in a situation where there is much that I want.
And that's a kind of a good place to be, right? I don't know.
I think so.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't covet stuff that people have. I'll ask them, hey, where'd you get that? Is it good? And then I'll work up to purchasing it one day, budgeting and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it is good not to just want other stuff, because if you're wanting stuff, then you're kind of in a desperate situation, I would think.
Like, what do you mean by that?
Like, I think if you are, like, say, I want that guy's car.
Yeah.
It means that, you're in a situation where you can't afford it, or that your car's not good enough for you because of some status issue that you're going through.
I think of it slightly differently. It's more not that you can't get it, more that you probably can get it, but then you can't get other stuff.
Hmm.
Like if I get something super expensive, then I'm getting something super expensive, but that would just mean I won't get anything else expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of like flips a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you have to trade off the money that you spend on something
Right.
expensive.
So if you're getting something expensive that will keep your family happy,
Yeah.
then you probably won't get that car.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you get that car and it will keep your family happy. You happy.
Just
There's just it's totally a bunch of factors.
Well, just like real life. Yeah, you have
Yeah.
to make trade-offs. Yeah.
Right. So what would you get if it would just appear, like, and you have it, and there's no like.
What I would want is like not to have to worry about things like for example, my wife just got into a car accident yesterday. She's fine, and my daughter's fine. But you know, if the car happens to be a write-off, then it would be great not to have to worry about something like that, where all of a sudden she can't drive to work, and then we have to budget for a new car or something. So, you know, there are people in the world who don't have that worry, right? It's like, I'll just buy a new one. Just, you know, send me one off the lot.
Or transit.
Whereas, you know, both of us are teachers and thinking of budgeting stuff all the time, right? Because we're not millionaires. Yeah, certainly would be nice. But I mean, the most important thing with what happened yesterday is that, you know, she's safe.
Yeah,
and
that's
my
really
daughter's
important.
safe, and they're healthy. I mean, they had a few bruises and stuff, but you know, nothing terrible. And the car did its job, which is what it's supposed to do, with the airbags and the construction to protect them. Yeah.
Well, luckily your family wasn't injured. I was in a car crash of my own in like 2013.
Yeah.
And that's where I met some Canucks. Like,
Really?
They came into the hospital. I had broke my back and like a bunch of other stuff. I had like
Oh my
totally
gosh.
messed up. My sister was also like, she had to go through surgery and everything. And my grandma was driving, and she's fine. Luckily, recently passed, but that's separate.
Yeah.
And it definitely like wakes you up a little bit, right, in life, where it's just like things just that didn't have value, and things that you valued before aren't valued, right? Like I don't care about cars that much anymore, because it's just like what does it matter, right? As long as it protects me, like your point.
It just snaps you out of your frivolous thinking about things that you covet and want, right? Just like you're saying. But it gives you perspective, like instantly. Like, I did not die. I'm in the hospital, but I'm alive. And so I have this second chance now to make good on things and, you know, put priorities where they should go. Yeah.
I wanted to quickly talk about some movies.
Sure.
Not anything specific, but more about what movies do you like? I know you and Mr. Pocock are quite into movies. What are your favorite movies?
That's a tough question. There's so many favorite movies, and for different reasons, right? I like a variety. So, for example, for a while, I liked all the Star Wars movies, the Marvel movies for that period of time when they were out. But things like that get stale after a while when you start seeing them just, you know, doing fan service, like creating a piece of art just to make money is kind of disgusting to me now. So the fact that Disney has decided to make live action versions of all their beautifully animated classic films, I don't like that at all. I think that studios should stay out of the way of creative people, because too often they come down and they give notes on, hey, can you do this? Because this would make us a lot of money. Their mind is not in the right place to make good art. And I think movies should be good art. And then when you have good art, and even if it's drastically different, then that's what art should be. Like it should be testing the boundaries. Then that could bring an audience in that, you know, you could still make money doing that because you've made something great, right? And that's not to say that all great art makes money, because there have been lots of movies that, you know, have been terrific that
Absolutely
didn't make a lot of money, but still to this day they have a following, right? People know that's an awesome movie and should see it. So my favorite movies, I guess Citizen Kane is one of them.
never seen, but I heard
Yeah, it's a classic, way ahead of its time. It was about William Randolph Hearst, the newspaper magnate. They didn't use his name in the movie, but basically that's what it's about. The larger than life guy who becomes super rich, and then at the end of his life, I won't spoil it, but kind of looks back and has a few regrets. But that's a powerful story. And that's important. Storytelling is important. Like if you have a movie with cool effects and stuff like that, and the story is not there, you can tell. Anybody can tell, right?
But I don't think that makes them necessarily bad movies. I guess it goes with your interests and what you're expecting this movie to be. If you're expecting really good story,
that's true. Yeah.
Like for example, some like Infinity War. If I didn't care about the story, I'd still really appreciate it for its art and its effects, and I'd still consider that a good movie with that if it had bad story or not, because that the effects were really good.
Yeah.
Right. So to someone that might be their favorite movie because of the effects, or maybe that's their favorite movie because of the story. Usually it's because of the story though, obviously. But I think it's really important to keep an open mind to like every movie. Like I watch a movie, for example, I guess Morbius. It was a terrible movie that turned out really bad. Yeah. But when I first watched it, I kept an open mind and I tried to appreciate it for everything but what it was. And I really liked the movie. And I'm like, hey guys, did you like this movie? No, it was terrible. And I'm just like, I don't know. Is there an objective like way of appreciating?
No, I think because it's always going to be subjective because people have different interests, right? Just like music too. You know, you could talk to anybody about a certain song and one person will say, I don't like it. One person will say, I don't care. And another person will say, I love that. And there's different components of the song they might like. It might be the lyrics or it might be the beats. Same thing with the movie, even more so with the movie because there's so much going on. But I think for me, after I finish the movie, for me, there has to have been some sort of story there. Like there has to be, not a point, but there has to be some interesting events that have happened and some character development, because that's how you get invested in a movie, right? Because if you, even with the Marvel ones, they did a really, really good job for a time with story arc, right? Even though there were so many characters, you could see them develop over time. Yeah, right.
One thing I think I appreciate the MCU for, Marvel Cinematic Universe, is not just the specific movies, even if some of them new or terrible, especially for the shows. It's more about what it adds to the MCU. I love Marvel so much. I love all the different kinds of characters. It's the infinite possibilities of like low street battles to world-ending battles. Yeah. And I really appreciate the added on to just the bigger picture, right? Instead of just, so that's how I get through a lot of MCU shows now, is just like, oh, they added Hulk's new kid at the end of She-Hulk. I mean, they did it terribly, but now that I know that that's going to be a part of the MCU, then it goes into the Young Avengers, right? And it just, Young Avengers are going to be here. Well, then what's going to happen to the real Avengers? Oh, there's going to be a big team up. Oh, it's going to be, like, it just keeps on adding on to the MCU. Yeah. I mean, She-Hulk, I didn't like it that much, but I loved what it added to the MCU. It added the Daredevil more, and more implying that the Daredevil is going to be back in the MCU. And there's just so much more adding to the MCU and the bigger book, so to speak. So that's how I try and appreciate a lot of movies is for like the new multiverse theme for a bunch of different kinds of movies is think about the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's all connected somehow, which is cool. Yeah. Have you seen the movie Logan?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So to me, that's probably my favorite superhero movie. Why do you think I like that movie over a lot of the other superhero movies?
Probably because it wasn't made to be for the MCU. It was made for its own movie, but of course it had its own background, right? They didn't use Spider-Man to connect like every single character in the MCU. They used Spider-Man, Logan in this case, to just talk about Spider-Man and his story and how it's going to end.
Okay. They talked about Spider-Man?
No, I was just using it as an example. Sorry.
Yeah. I think I've been thinking about this because after I watched Logan, I was like, wow, if they could do more movies like that, I think it has to do, well, the fact that it was R-rated meant that they had kind of the freedom to not have to limit themselves with whether it's violence or traumatic experiences or whatever. But also, I think you get to see a different side of being a superhero because superheroes should have flaws. I mean, you still see it in the Marvel movies or whatever, but like very much so in Logan because it's about Wolverine and his aging process, right? So there was something very real about that movie that I really enjoyed because it felt like, okay, if this was in the real world,
it felt
this
so
is kind
real.
of closer, right? Yeah.
Because I remember like sometimes when, spoiler alert, Professor Xavier dies and he says a bunch of nice things to what he thinks is Logan, but it's just a clone of Logan who's evil. And then he dies. So he never gets his word out there to appreciate Logan.
Oh, so tragic.
And it almost made me cry. It almost made me cry.
Yeah.
And it was just so sad.
Yes.
So I think the difference between Logan and a bunch of other MCU movies is that, like I said, it focused on Logan. It focused on his story around just him. It didn't try to include any other stuff. And even if it did, it's usually not done well. So that's why Logan was super good. But when I think of Logan as well, I think of the bigger story. And they retconned a lot of stuff for Logan.
Yeah.
I mean, they retconned everything around Wolverine like 5 times throughout the entire X-Men process. And so it made it hard for me to appreciate Logan.
Solve it with time travel.
Yes. Like I loved how they kind of brought back Logan a bit for the new Deadpool movie where he's digging up his grave.
Yeah.
But then it also F's with the memory of Logan because he's digging up his grave.
Yeah. I kind of hate the time travel thing. I mean, there's ways to do it well, but it just seems so cheap to explain it off with, okay, we're in a different, what do you call it? The timeline or something like that.
There's like the main timeline, a bunch of branching.
So we're going to do this completely differently and nothing's going to make sense, but it's because it's a different branch. Right. I don't like that
because you get the best of every single world, right?
True. You want to see everything, but at the same time, it's like, oh, that kind of feels like cheating.
It is like it does feel like cheating that in a universe where you didn't like how someone died, there's a universe where someone died.
Yeah.
And this kind of brings me to this movie with Will Smith, where the zombie apocalypse. I forgot what it's called, but it's like Survivor, and it's just him in New York, and it's a big zombie apocalypse, and he has a dog friend.
Yeah. What's that called again?
I'm gonna have to look.
Yeah, I forgot what that's called. But yeah, I watched that. That was good.
I really liked that movie, and at the end, the dog dies.
Yeah.
Where he has a choice to cure himself, cure the entire society, or cure his dog. And he chose both. There's two movies.
Yeah.
There's 2 movies where they changed the ending to saving the world and saving the dog.
There's 2 movies?
It's called I Am Legend.
I Am Legend, yeah.
there's two versions of the movie. One where the ending is
Oh, okay. Yeah.
is the other way, and one is the other way. What do you feel about that? Because that's kind of the same like dilemma with the
But
timeline,
they
right?
didn't release both versions.
I think it's in different areas because
Really?
it's still you can still access it. I'm not sure if they're both released,
Okay, because
but it's still there, right?
they sometimes will have different because they haven't decided which one to use, but they definitely decided which one to use and release that. And then what you're seeing is probably one of those behind the scenes or making of where they said, yeah, actually, we had a different ending and we weren't sure yet, you know.
But that's
So-
still kind of the same because you're using your mind to immerse yourself in this movie with that same story.
I actually like it when people who make movies kind of leave it up to us to decide, because then there's even more possibilities. So sometimes in certain shows or movies, they kind of ends abruptly, or you don't get to see what happens, and it's like the moment the door opens and it cuts off, right? And then you're like, oh, I wanted to see what was behind that door. But I love that. I love that. Some people hate it. Some people want everything tied up, nice and neat. But I love being able to imagine all the different possibilities.
So, what do you think is more valuable? When I think of a movie tied up, I'm like, man, that was such a good movie. And I think about it for like a good few days. And I'm like, yeah, that was a good movie.
Yeah.
But with it not tied up, open door or closed door, and you're like, what is happening? I think, for my personal experience, I think about that movie at least like once a year. I'm like, oh, whatever happened with that movie? What do you think is more valuable?
I like being able to have something to talk to people about. That's kind of the fun of movies as well. Like when I can, like, there's really nobody else that I can talk about movies with except Mr. Pocock, because he's seen them all.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll chat with him. What do you think about this ending? Or he'll ask me.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I was talking with like about the new Venom movie and how terrible it was.
Yeah.
And how I'm just like, it just makes me so sad to see Venom end up like this. And
Tom Hardy, my favorite actor.
Yeah, and they made him have like American accent when he didn't really need an American accent. And that movie basically made the entire plan to do with that and the Spider Woman and the Venom and then the Craven and all of that is now canceled because it was so bad.
It's totally messed up.
But it's really nice because movies bring up like conversation like crazy, because I relate with that, where I talk to Mr. Pocock about that and I'm like, and we're both just talking about it. And I think movies are really special in that way.
I think my favorite movies make me wonder about different worlds, whether in like the real world, like a different culture or a different part of the world, or like a fantasy world. You know, when they build up, they do a good job of building the world. I love those kinds of things.
Like Harry Potter.
Yeah. And also I think good movies to me make me wonder. And so that's why I enjoy endings that are not finite, where I can wonder, okay, what happens to these characters? Like, it's okay that it's not completely fully explained to me, because I can imagine possibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, this was not it was a finite ending, but there's a movie called Mulholland Drive by David Lynch
Never heard.
that had me thinking about it for, I swear, weeks. Because after the movie was over, and because of how it was filmed, it kind of ends at a certain point and then it goes back to a certain point, and then you get to see from a different perspective without giving anything away. But after that, I had to go on the internet and was like, what I had to talk to somebody. Like, what is going on here? Like, why did that happen? And, you know, I learned so much from that process. And the director left little clues throughout as well. I love that. I love, you know, some people like just leaving the theater and, you know, we're done with it, on to the next thing. But I like those kinds of movies where
It really
can
like
think
bleeds
about.
into your life a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like movies, you would think just like, oh, that's
Yeah.
not really part of your life. You're just watching a movie and then
Right.
moving on. But I like the movies that kind of bleed into your life where you're conversing about it, you're thinking about it, you're actually going out of your way to do something with that movie.
Yeah.
And I think it's just incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it's interactive in that sense, and it gets people talking about it, which is really cool, right? It's not over yet, and I'm still thinking about it. Like once in a while, something will pop into my head, or I'll see something online and be like, "Oh, that's what that was. I got to rewatch it now." Yeah,
yeah, and I think of the same kind of thing with video games. A really great example is Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order. I played Jedi Fallen Order. It was super good. I love the story, and I'm like, man, I want more. Luckily, Survivor just came out.
Yeah.
So then I played Survivor, and it had a crazy twist. Not sure if you played it.
I remember Survivor. I played Fallen Order. I didn't finish it. But,
it took me a few times because it was really performance was terrible. But when I got to like a big twist and then finished the game, that affected me for weeks. I'm just like, I can't believe that this happened. And I think gaming is quite the same as movies. But for me, of course, it's preference. Video games are much more powerful to me because you're actually you're doing that, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just watching a fight scene between like Darth Sidious and Yoda, you're actually doing that. And it's just much more powerful when you beat them or you fail to them and now you want to go after them. You have more motivation. You feel their motivation because you're there with that motivation. I love story games, of course, like Spider-Man, the story game. I love a bunch of video games. What do you think about video games in that sort?
I like video games. I don't have a ton of time to play through video games, so I haven't finished a lot of them. And I had Game Pass for a while, but it turns out that I didn't have enough time to actually make it worth it.
Yeah.
So I had to cancel that. But like one of my favorite games that I'm still playing, and I want to take my time because I don't actually want to ever finish it, is Breath of the Wild on Nintendo. So I have an Xbox and I have a Switch at home.
Yeah.
And Breath of the Wild
the newer one or the older one?
I only have the older one.
Oh yeah. I'm still playing that too. I don't want to finish it.
Yeah, every time I jump into it, it's like, oh cool. I like just the discovery of the game. And two things. Number one, I've never seen an open world game like it because it's really open world. Right? I could run to the final boss, basically, if I wanted to. I
accidentally did that. My friend's like, no.
Yeah. I mean, you'll die, but you can.
Yeah.
Right? Just like in real life. It's so open world that I can go anywhere. I can climb almost anything in that game. And it's just full of cool puzzles and stuff, things to discover. So, I mean, I love that game. And the second thing is I appreciate the programming of that game because how do they do it? Like you play a lot of modern games and sometimes there's like weird glitches that you get stuck somewhere or Cyberpunk is maybe the worst example where when it first was released, it was like full of like people doing T poses floating in a room and what the heck?
Yeah.
So how do they make a fully open world game with as complex as Zelda Breath of the Wild? And there are very few times where it glitches. I can't remember finding a glitch. I'm sure there are some, but it's just astounding how well they made that game.
I don't necessarily consider this a glitch, but I played Breath of the Wild, not finished. I should definitely finish it. And when you're gliding, you can slow time, put a bomb in the air, and then explode the bomb, and now you're flying, and then you use your glider, and you use that momentum.
Yeah.
What do you consider those kinds of like glitches in the game where the developers kind of just leave it in because now it's a feature?
Yeah. I think so. If it is a glitch, then people are. That's the other thing about that game. There's so many things you can do that are creative. There's like, I don't like games where there's only one way to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And Breath of the Wild and what's the other one?
Teardrops of Kingdom or something.
Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah. Both of them it's like playing with Lego because there's so many different combinations of things you can do.
But
right?
I'd say that's also really overwhelming, right? Like if I have a lot of time to play video games, I'm a teenager, so I can really sit down for like 8 hours on a day of Saturday or Sunday to just play one game,
Yeah.
right? But I find it extremely overwhelming sometimes. You play 8 hours of Breath of the Wild, and then the next day you're like, damn, like I don't really like. There's so much that I can do. I just, and it just makes you burned out so fast.
Yeah. I think that sounds like more of your problem.
Yeah.
Your addiction issues.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, when you're an adult and you have responsibilities, you can't be doing that.
Yeah.
No, you're just forced to leave your game in the middle of it. Which is, with Zelda, you can easily do that. You can save a save point and leave, right?
Yeah.
Whereas some games you can't.
Yeah, life has been like I used to only play video games for a while when I was younger because that's the only thing, right, that I could do after school that I felt like I just did. And then a while later, I have like a really great group of friends, and now I'm doing literally everything outside. And so my life is like quickly switched to playing games constantly after school. Now, never gonna play games like ever after school, maybe like once a week. What do you think of like the balance between like things you enjoy and I guess things like family and friends? Like well, the balance between time with yourself and time with family and friends.
Yeah, there has to be that balance. Like you can't always be out there for everybody else and not care about yourself, because I would consider myself an introvert. I don't like being in crowds all the time. If you ask me, would you rather stay home and enjoy a movie or video game or, have some dessert, or go out to a massive party? I would never pick the party.
Yeah.
Never. I just don't. It just takes away energy. And that's how they kind of define introvert, extrovert, is that what energizes me is being alone or with like a small group of people, like my family or a couple of friends, and, enjoying that time together. Because I find myself in large gatherings, it seems like, to me, like it's not to everybody, but being an introvert, to me, it takes away energy because I feel like there's a lot of little small talk and I don't feel energized by that. And I'd rather spend time doing
kind of like
something
intellectual, talking, because at parties and doing big social gatherings, you can never really have a intellectual conversation because there's just too many people to really.
Yeah. It takes some effort. Let's just say it takes some effort to pull somebody aside and I want to talk to you for 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
Because they're pulled in many different directions at a party, right? So it's like totally different.
Yeah, it's only small talk or just like, hey, how are you? And, yeah. Some key questions I want to ask you before this finishes. How do you balance work and life?
Work life and like home life?
Yeah. So how do you balance doing school work? And how do you balance,
It's a weird thing being a teacher, because this is kind of part of my identity. So I would say that even sometimes when I'm on vacation, if I see something cool, I often think about, if I go to a museum, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Wouldn't my students like to see that? Maybe I'm at a science museum or something. I'd be like, oh, I could use that in my slideshow, or, I would like to show them this because it's a good example of whatever, right? We went to Lyon in France over the summer, and I took lots of pictures at a miniature and film museum. It was a really good film museum, and they had miniatures there. So I just took pictures because they were cool. And then it happened to be, I was showing them some vacation shots in our innovation class, and that's what inspired them to want to create miniatures this year, right? So because it's part of my identity, sometimes I think about it, when I'm out on the street or anytime. So how do I balance it? In terms of just the work itself, like as teachers, we lesson plan, we mark. Um, and lesson planning is really trying to come up with ideas. Sometimes it's taking ideas that you did before and always trying to make it better, or at least I try to do something different with it because that keeps it interesting for me too. And then there's the assessment where it's just looking through like your work and trying to
my beautiful work.
Yes, your excellent work, and going through a rubric and trying to determine where you're at, and being happy when you've done better, and being sad or upset when it's just the same as before and there's no improvement. So that's what takes up most of the time at home, and it truly is at home. We have take-home work, right? It's not like I leave my job and then go home and, I'm going to play video games for the rest of the night.
You truly only get paid for like 8:30 to 3 o'clock as we pay with our time that same time. Yeah,
because I mean, if you look at like this semester right now, I don't have a prep during the day. I teach 4 blocks during the day. That's the whole day, right? So sometimes you'll see me after school at my desk here because I'm trying to get the stuff done because I don't want to take it home because I know when I get home, I need to cook or need to help with stuff.
Responsibilities.
There's other stuff. So, I mean, in terms of managing, I'm really good with my calendar and to-do list. That kind of keeps me going. I think I'd be lost without those 2 organizational tools. And every day I have my reminders coming up and I just try to get it done as fast as possible. And usually like right away, like if we're at a staff meeting and they're like, okay, teachers, don't forget to fill out the survey. I open my laptop, I finish it right there. I'm like, that's not even going to make it to my to-do list because I know I can do it right now.
Yeah.
And that's how I manage things so that I don't have a pile of stuff waiting for me at some point.
Yeah.
Right.
You just gotta cut through that tree,
Yeah.
Get through it.
I mean, that's how I get through life in terms of getting rid of work so that I can enjoy home.
My last question to you, Mr. Kung, is what was your hardest moment? Let's say academically your hardest moment and life hardest moment, and how did you get through it?
Academically, I would say in high school, I was a really good student. I was really good at high school, studied hard, and I wasn't competitive at all. I'm not one of those, I wasn't one of those kids who would just constantly ask for marks and compare myself with other people. And you see, that's why I don't identify with students who do that. I'm like, why? Why are you, how does that help you? Because I wasn't competitive. I just always wanted to do as best as I could because I felt shameful if I put together something that was garbage and turned that in. So I did well in high school, and then so that wasn't much of an issue. I did
perhaps like academically, like you as a teacher, and academically.
Well, I was going to say when I got to university, it was a totally different story. And I'm sure you've heard this. Well, maybe you haven't, but I've definitely heard this where, because it's a different environment and it's a professor with like a class of 500 and it's like totally different, right? And yeah, my marks just tanked.
Yeah, Mr. Kim, like if you always lose 30% of your real average in the first.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a rule, but I mean, it definitely went down. And then at some point, I was just like, well, I'm just trying my best. That's all I can do, And I got through it. So those are some tough times because, it was like multiple exams in a row sometimes and labs. And I was just tired a lot of the time, right? Because there wasn't much free time. It was a lot of studying and a lot of studying in environments that were not good, like sitting in a library and stuff like that, which, it was difficult for me. And I'm not a good memorizer. And sometimes there was a lot of content to remember. So like flashcards and things like that, I would try all sorts of things and I had a hard time. Because for me, it's more about understanding concepts. For me, I have a hard time just memorizing rote memory type of stuff. And there were a couple courses that were like that. So, yeah, that was a struggle. And your other question was the hardest thing in life. I think it's dealing with loss of family,
Totally.
or going through, situations like my father-in-law had cancer, and that was a tough one. Because he was a really good man and really funny, and and when you have something like a terminal illness like that, it's like an extended period where you're kind of dealing with it every single day while you're trying to get through the day at work, right? Yeah, and thinking about that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, we all go through things like that where you're trying to do the best possible. Like even like last night, I had to deal with my wife and my daughter, picking them up from that accident. And, we still have to deal with it all through spring break. But, coming to work today was kind of tough because, I was trying to do what I usually do. But in the back of my mind, there's that going on. Thinking about, I'm glad they're not hurt. And, what do we do now without a car? And, all those things creep into your mind, and it's hard to deal with that. But, you find a way, and you have to know that, well, at least they're safe, the number one thing. And also we will get through this because it's been a tough week, actually. There's a few things we've had to get through, but
Sorry, Mr. Cock.
It's okay. This has made it all better. But if you go through enough of those things in your life, you can make it through, right?
Through it.
Yeah, because you survive one thing, then that makes that next horrible, terrible thing that happens. It makes it a little bit easier in terms of the breaking it down into a problem to solve, I think. That's the way I look at it.
What would you say to future people going through their hardest time and future teachers trying to be a teacher?
I think it's just like breaking it into chunks, and it's just like any sort of problem solving. You could get some enormous task. It seems enormous at the moment, but there are ways of thinking about it as smaller steps, right? There's a saying that says a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and that is so true. If you need to write that 500-word essay or whatever, you have to just start. Even if it's like the roughest thing you could ever make, it's better than staring at a blank page.
If you're staring at information, you can work with information. You can't work with a blank page.
Yes, exactly. So I often tell students, like, don't spend no time just sitting there with blank page trying to come up with the perfect first line. Just blurt it out and then go back and fix it, because you can't solve problems that way. If you have a coding problem, you can't just wait on it. You have to dig in and figure out, what are my steps for troubleshooting here? How do I narrow this down? What can I try? Let's try something. As soon as you try something, then that leads to another something that you try, and then eventually it leads to the solution. You have to trust the fact that eventually you can do it. And that's sometimes hard for people, but I think that comes with experience. Once you have solved tough problems, then it makes it easier for the next tough problem. So that's my advice. Like, break it up and think of it as small problems to solve. And if you solve enough of those little problems, then you will solve the big problem.
Great. Thank you for joining me, Mr. Kong. This has been awesome. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Casey. This is great.
Yeah. Make sure to keep it low-ski, Mr. Kong.
I will keep it low-ski, Casey.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.